How do you stay calm when your own daughter texts that you are banned from the Italian vacation because her fiancé says it is family only, right after you put $95,000 into their house? Why do people act bold when they think you are just a wallet with a quiet voice? What happens when you stop arguing and start using the same systems they rely on? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Graham Cole. I am 56. I work as a project supervisor for a small construction company. My job is not flashy. It is mostly lists, schedules, safety checks, and fixing small problems before they become big ones. I am good at it because I stay calm. I do not raise my voice. I do not rush. I just keep things moving. That day started like most days. The morning air was cold and dry. The job site was already loud with engines and backing alarms. I walked the line of materials, checked the deliveries, and asked a few questions. I nodded at the crew. I signed the forms. I reminded a new guy to wear his eye protection. Nothing special happened. Around lunch, I stepped into the site trailer to look at the next week's plan. The trailer always smelled like paper, coffee, and dust. I was writing notes when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I thought it was a vendor, or my sister, or a calendar reminder. It was my daughter, Lena. I sat down in the folding chair and opened the message. I read it once, then again. My eyes moved slow over the same lines, like my brain did not want to accept them. She told me I was not going on their Italian vacation. She said Darian wanted it to be family only. She wrote it like it was a simple rule, like it was normal, like it was already decided and done. There was no question. There was no discussion. There was no space for me to be her father. I stared at the screen. My hands did not shake. My face did not change much, but inside, something went quiet. It felt like a room where all the sound turns off at once. I looked at the time. I looked at my notes. I looked at the message again. I noticed what was missing. Lena did not say she disagreed. She did not say she tried to talk to him. She did not say she wanted me there. She only passed the decision to me, like a mail carrier. I put the phone down on the table and kept breathing. Outside the trailer, I could hear laughter and tools and the steady noise of work. My life kept moving around me, even while my family life stopped in one sharp moment. I finished my notes. I checked the schedule again. I went back outside. I did my job. That is one thing people do not understand about me. When something hurts, I do not fall apart in public. I do not make a scene. I do not call 10 people to talk about it. I get quiet. I watch. I remember. I finish what needs to be finished. Later, I walked the site with my foreman. He talked about the next shipment. I answered in short sentences. I nodded. I pointed to a spot where we needed to change the layout. He did not know what happened on my phone. He only saw the same calm guy he always saw. At the end of the shift, I locked the trailer and walked to my truck. The sky had that late afternoon look, pale and flat. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment and held the phone again. I opened Lena's message one more time. I read it slow. I tried to picture her typing it. I tried to picture her face while she sent it. I tried to picture Darian near her, watching. I could not tell which picture was worse. I did not reply right away. On the drive home, I thought about the house. That is where my mind went, without me even pushing it there. I thought about the first time Lena asked me for help. She sounded tired that day. She said she wanted stability. She said she wanted a place that felt safe. She said the timing was hard and prices were high. She said she needed a boost to get started. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with papers spread out. I remember her excitement when she talked about paint colors and a small garden. I remember telling her I would help because she was my daughter and I could. I remember feeling proud that I could do it without begging anyone or borrowing money. Over time, the number grew. Repairs, inspections, closing costs, a down payment portion, small problems that were not small when they were added together. I kept track. I kept my own records. When I totaled it later, it came to $95,000. I did not give that money to buy control. I gave it to help her build a life. I gave it because I thought that was what a father did when he could. I thought it would create stability, not distance. When I got home, the house felt too quiet. I live alone. My wife left years ago, and that is a different story. The silence usually feels normal to me. That evening it felt heavy. I put my keys in the bowl by the door. I washed my hands. I looked at the kitchen counter. There was a small magnet on the fridge from an old family trip. It was from a beach place we went when Lena was younger. Back then, she held my hand in crowded places. Back then, she looked for me in a room. I opened the fridge and stared at the shelves like I forgot what food was. Then I closed it and sat down. I called Lena. It rang until it went to voicemail. I did not call again. I did not leave a long message. I only said my name and told her to call me when she had time. My voice sounded steady, even to me. I waited a few minutes. I checked my phone again. No reply. I made a simple dinner. I did not taste much of it. I chewed and swallowed because that is what you do. I drank water. I cleaned the plate. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and my notebook. I keep a notebook for work and home reminders. I write things down because it keeps my mind clear. When feelings start running in circles, facts help. I wrote the date at the top of the page. I wrote Lena's name. I wrote Italy. I wrote the words she used about family only. I wrote Darian's name. I did not write angry words. I did not write big speeches. I only wrote what happened. Then I wrote the house amount, $95,000. I wrote it as numbers first, then spelled it out. It looked strange on the page, like it belonged to someone else. I tried to be honest with myself. Was I surprised? Part of me was not. There had been small signs for a while. Short replies, delayed calls, plans made without me. A quick change in tone when Darian was around. My invitations feeling like polite extras, not real wants. Still, reading it in a message was different. It was clean and sharp. It was a door closing. I thought about Darian. I met him about a year ago. He came into Lena's life with a loud kind of confidence. He smiled a lot. He talked like he was presenting a version of himself. He used words about goals, standards, and the future. He had strong opinions about simple things, like where to eat and what kind of car was best. At first, I did not mind. People can be different. I do not need to be the center of my daughter's world. I only wanted basic respect. I wanted space to be her father. But Darian always acted like he was measuring me, like he was checking if I had value. When we were in a group, he would speak over me. If I offered a suggestion, he would answer like it was a debate he needed to win. He was not openly cruel, he was careful. He kept it wrapped in polite words, and Lena changed around him. Her laugh got tighter. Her eyes checked his face before she answered. She used phrases that did not sound like her. She started saying things like it is better this way, or he just wants what is best, or it is not a big deal. Now the message sat in my hand as proof of where things were. I opened my banking app. I looked at my scheduled transfers. I saw the recurring payments I had set up to help with their house costs. It was there in black and white, like a machine that kept working even after the reason for it had changed. I did not tap anything yet. I only looked. I set the phone down and rubbed my forehead. I felt tired. Not tired like after work. Tired like after you realize you have been carrying something for too long. I thought about what a father is supposed to accept. I thought about what I had accepted already. Then I thought about the line between helping and being used. I did not cry. I do not say that to sound tough. It is just the truth. My body did not go that way. Instead, I felt a slow pressure in my chest, like a weight settling into place. I breathed through it and stayed still. Before bed, I checked the phone one more time. There was no callback, no apology, no explanation, just silence. I turned off the kitchen light. I walked through the quiet rooms. I stopped at my home office door and looked inside. The desk was clean, the shelves were neat. Everything had a place. That night, I slept lightly. I woke up early, before the sun. I sat at the kitchen table again with my coffee. I looked at the notebook page I wrote. The message did not feel less real in the morning. If anything, it felt more real. I did not send a long reply. I did not beg. I did not argue. I simply decided I would stop guessing and start dealing with facts. I would do what I always do when something matters. I would stay calm. I would pay attention. I would move carefully. And I would not pretend this was normal. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I did not really want. The message was still there on my phone. It looked the same as it did the night before. That part bothered me. I kept hoping my mind had made it bigger than it was. But the words did not change. I started thinking about how we got here. Lena was my only child. When she was small, she followed me around the house like a shadow. If I fixed a cabinet door, she wanted to hand me the screwdriver. If I washed the car, she wanted to hold the sponge. I used to tell her she could do anything if she learned to stay steady and finish what she started. She would nod like she understood, even when she did not. Her mother and I did not last. There was no big scene, no loud fights in public. We just drifted apart and became strangers in the same kitchen. When it ended, I kept things simple. I kept my job. I kept my routines. I made sure Lena had what she needed. I showed up. I did not miss school events. I did not make promises I could not keep. As Lena got older, our relationship changed like it does for most parents and kids. She became more private. She stopped telling me everything. That was normal. I was not trying to control her. I only wanted to stay close enough to be useful, and close enough that she knew I was still there. In her 20s, she got married the first time. Owen was polite. He was quiet. He shook my hand and looked me in the eye. He worked a steady job and stayed out of drama. I respected that. Their marriage did not last long. They tried, then they stopped trying, then it ended. It was sad, but it was not a war. After the split, Lena wanted a fresh start. That is when the house idea began. She said she was tired of renting. She said she wanted a place that felt like hers. She told me she had been saving, but she was not quite there. She said the market was hard and the timing was bad. She asked if I could help just to get her over the line. I remember asking her what her plan was. She said she would cover the mortgage and the normal bills. She said she only needed help for the front end and some repairs. She promised she would handle the rest. I asked her if she was sure. She said yes. I agreed because I believed her. I also agreed because I wanted her to have stability. I did not want her to keep moving every year. I did not want her to feel like her life could be packed into boxes at any moment. At first, it felt good. She would send me pictures of the empty rooms and talk about how she wanted to set them up. I helped her choose a solid washer and dryer. I paid for a plumber when the water pressure was wrong. I bought a few tools she did not have. I spent weekends there, fixing small things and making the place safer. I told myself it was normal father stuff. I did not keep score in my heart, but I did keep records because that is how my brain works. I wrote down what I paid, when I paid it, and why. I did it the same way I track work budgets, not to punish anyone, just to stay clear. The first cracks did not come from the house. They came from the way Lena started speaking to me when money was involved. At the start, she would call and talk for a while. She would ask about my week. She would tell me about her job. Then later, she started calling with a shorter tone. She would begin with the problem. She would say the repair was urgent. She would say she felt stressed. She would say she was trying her best. I would listen. I would offer help if it was reasonable. I would remind her that I wanted her to learn how to manage it too. She would say she understood. Then the next issue would show up. I also noticed something else. When I visited, she was often on her phone. If I asked a question about the house, she would say she would check later. If I offered to teach her how to shut off the water valve or reset a breaker, she would smile and say she was busy, but she still expected me to solve the problems. Then Darian entered the picture. Lena told me she met him through friends. She said he was confident and ambitious. She said he made her feel safe. Those words caught my attention because I had always wanted her to feel safe. But the way she said it sounded different than before. It sounded like she was quoting something, not describing something. I met him at a restaurant. He was friendly in a bright way, like he was performing kindness. He asked me what I did and nodded fast, like he already knew what to think. He spoke a lot about plans. He talked about travel, business ideas, and building a life. He used phrases like standards and goals. He smiled when he said them, but it felt like he was testing the room. During that dinner, I noticed he rarely asked Lena real questions. He spoke about what they would do, but it sounded like he was the one steering. Lena looked at him a lot. When he talked, she watched his face. When I spoke, she looked down at her plate. After that, small shifts became bigger. At the house, Darian started acting like he belonged there more than I did. If I came by to fix something, he would stand close and watch, then explain to Lena what I was doing, like she could not understand unless it came from him. Sometimes he would take a call in the middle of my sentence. Other times, he would answer questions that were not directed at him. I stayed calm. I told myself it was just personality. I told myself Lena would set boundaries if she needed to. I did not want to be the father who causes tension in his child's relationship. I thought patience would help. But patience only works when the other side has respect. One weekend, I came over to look at a leak under the sink. I brought a small toolbox. Darian was there. He did not greet me like a guest or like family. He greeted me like an employee. He said they were glad I could make time. Then he moved on and kept talking to Lena about the living room furniture. When I finished, Lena thanked me quickly and asked if I could also take a look at the back door because it was sticking. I said I could. Darian said it would be good to get it done before they hosted people because he did not want the house to look unfinished. That word stayed with me. Unfinished. Like the house was a show and I was the worker behind it. Not long after, Lena began bringing up money again, but in a new way. She did not ask as a daughter asking her father. She asked like it was a normal part of the plan. She said the next transfer would help them keep momentum. She said it would reduce stress. She said it would be temporary. I asked her why it was temporary if it kept happening. She laughed, not in a mean way, but in a way that avoided the question. She said I worried too much. Darian smiled and said I should relax and enjoy being part of their future. That sentence sounded nice on the surface, but it also carried a message. I was there to support their future, not to be included in it. I saw it in little scenes too. Group messages would pop up with plans, and I would be tagged only when help was needed. If they were choosing restaurants or planning outings, I would be left out, then told later with a line like they assumed I was busy. If I asked why, Lena would say it was not intentional. Darian would say it was easier to keep the group small. The hardest part was how Lena started to repeat his style. She used to tell stories in her own words. Now she used his phrases. She started saying things like it is better this way, or it makes sense, or we just want peace. When I brought up how I felt, she would say I was taking it too seriously. She would say I was making it emotional. That one always hurt, because I was not being emotional. I was being human. A few weeks before the text about Italy, I met my sister Nina for coffee. Nina and I have always been close, not in a dramatic way, but in a steady way. She watches people carefully. She notices what others miss. Nina asked how things were with Lena. I gave a simple answer. I said Lena was busy and building her life. Nina stared at me for a second, then told me she saw something at a family gathering I missed. She said Lena introduced Darian to someone and described him as the one who handles the important stuff now. Nina said the way Lena said it sounded proud, like it was a compliment. I did not argue with Nina. I only asked what else she noticed. Nina said Darian liked being the center. She said he liked an audience. She said Lena looked smaller around him. I drove home after that coffee and tried to tell myself Nina was reading too much into it. But the more I replayed scenes, the more the pattern fit. That is why the Italy message hit so hard. It was not a random insult. It was the final form of the pattern. When I finished my coffee that morning, I did not send a long reply. I did not call 10 times. I did not post anything. I just sat there and let the truth settle. And I had been trying to stay included by being helpful. I had been trying to earn respect by paying for stability. I had been hoping that if I stayed quiet, they would remember I mattered. But the message showed me a simple fact. In their world, my place was optional. My money was not. Once I admitted that, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Clarity. 2 days after the Italy message, Lena invited me to a community fundraiser at a church hall. She wrote that it would be good to show support, and that Darian would be there early to help set up. The message looked friendly on the surface, but it also felt like a test, like she wanted me to act normal in public, even while I was being pushed out in private. I told her I would come for a short time. That evening, I parked on the side street and walked toward the building. The air smelled like cold leaves and car exhaust. The church hall had bright lights and a line of people carrying trays and boxes. I could hear voices through the door. The sound was warm and busy. Inside, the room was full of tables, paper signs, and volunteers moving fast. I saw Lena near the back with a clipboard. Darian stood beside her, talking to a group of people like he owned the room. He wore a clean jacket and a wide smile. His posture was open and confident, like he expected agreement. When Lena noticed me, she raised her hand and smiled. It was not a cold smile. It was the smile she used when she wanted things to be easy. She walked over and gave me a quick hug. It felt practiced, like a greeting for an audience. She said she was glad I came. She asked if I could help move a few boxes. I told her yes. As we carried boxes from the entrance to the table, I watched the way Darian handled the room. He spoke loudly, but not rude. He joked. He praised people. He made plans out loud. He kept saying we when he meant himself and Lena. A few people came up to me and asked how I was. I answered politely. I did not bring up the Italy message. I did not want to use a public place as a fight zone. I did not want to embarrass Lena. I still cared about her, even if she did not seem to understand what she was doing. After a while, Darian walked over with 2 men I did not know. He introduced them to Lena, then looked at me like he noticed me for the first time. He said my name in a friendly tone, and then kept talking. One of the men asked if I was joining their Italy trip. He said he heard they were doing something special. He sounded happy for them, like it was good news. For a second, I thought Lena would step in. I thought she would say I was her father, and of course I was included in family time. I waited for that. I watched her face. Lena hesitated. Her eyes moved to Darian. Darian smiled and answered for her. He said they were keeping the trip small. He said it would be family only, and that they wanted it to be simple and private. He said it like it was a wise choice. Like anyone would agree. The man nodded and said that made sense. I felt a strange heat in my chest, not rage, more like shame mixed with surprise. Not because of what Darian said, because Lena stood there and let him say it. She did not correct him. She did not even look uncomfortable. She just smiled a little and looked down at her clipboard. That was the moment a line was crossed for me. It was not the first time Darian pushed me aside. It was the first time he did it in front of strangers, with Lena standing next to him like it was normal. It was like watching my role get rewritten in real time. I did not argue. I did not demand an explanation in the middle of a fundraiser. I simply nodded and said I understood. The men moved on. Darian turned back to Lena and started talking about where to place the donation jars. He did not ask me if I was okay. He did not need to. In his mind, I was an extra. My feelings did not matter because he was sure I would keep paying anyway. I helped for another 20 minutes. I carried boxes, aligned chairs, and kept my face calm. I moved like a person doing a simple task. Inside, I was watching everything with new eyes. I noticed how often Lena checked Darian's reactions before she spoke. I noticed how Darian liked to speak when more people were around. I noticed how Lena's thank you to me was quick and quiet, while her praise for Darian was louder. When I finally said I had to leave, Lena asked if I could come by the house the next day to look at a loose stair railing. She said she did not want it to be an issue while they had guests. She said it would only take a moment. Darian added that it was good to keep the place tight before they left town. I told them I would see what I could do. In the car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel and did not start the engine right away. The parking lot lights reflected on the windshield. People walked past with trays and bags, laughing and talking. Life kept moving like nothing happened. I replayed that conversation again. The man asked about Italy. Darian answered. Lena stayed quiet. I thought about what it meant. It meant this was not a misunderstanding. It was a decision. It meant Lena was letting Darian define who counts as family. It meant my place in her life could be reduced to a role that can be removed. I drove home slowly. At home, I did not turn on the television. I did not distract myself with noise. I went straight to my home office and sat at the desk. The room was small but organized. A lamp, a few shelves, a filing cabinet, and a clean surface. It was the kind of room that makes me feel steady. I opened a drawer and took out a plain folder with the house address written on it. I had made it months earlier, back when things still felt like teamwork. I placed it on the desk. I did not open it right away. I just looked at it. I asked myself a simple question. What am I doing? I was paying money, giving labor, and offering support. In return, I was getting less and less respect, and now I was being pushed out publicly with a smile. That question did not make me angry. It made me clear. I opened the folder and looked at the way I had tracked everything, dates, notes, small descriptions. It was not dramatic, it was just reality written down. I closed it again and set it aside. Then I opened my notebook, wrote the date, and wrote one line about what happened at the fundraiser. I wrote it like a work note, clean and simple. I wrote that Darian told strangers it was family only. I wrote that Lena did not correct him. After that, I picked up my phone and scrolled through old messages. I did not read them for comfort, I read them for pattern. I saw the shift over time. Early messages had longer sentences and warmth. Newer messages were shorter and often linked to a need, a request, or a plan made without me. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. I realized something important. I had been trying to earn a place that should never need to be earned. A father should not have to pay to be treated like family. If I had to pay, then I was not being loved. I was being used. That thought sat heavy in the room. I did not decide everything that night. I did not create a loud plan. But I did decide one thing with full certainty. I was done begging for a seat at a table I helped build. The next day, I went to work and kept my routine. I walked the site. I answered questions. I signed forms. From the outside, I looked the same. Inside, I was not the same. During a break, I stepped away from the noise and called my sister Nina. I told her about the fundraiser moment. I did not add extra emotion. I just told her what was said and what Lena did. Nina was quiet for a second. Then she said she was not surprised. She said Darian liked control. She said Lena was choosing the easier path, the one that made her feel protected, even if it cost her loyalty. I asked Nina if I was wrong for feeling hurt. She said feelings are not wrong. She said my mistake was thinking kindness would automatically earn respect from people who measure love like a transaction. After that call, I sat in my truck and looked at my calendar app. I marked a date 2 weeks out. It was the date of the send-off dinner Lena mentioned in a separate message, a dinner Darian planned at a local Italian restaurant before the trip. I stared at that date for a long time. When I got home that evening, Lena texted again. She asked if I could still look at the stair railing. She said it was bothering her. She added a smiling face like that would soften everything. I replied in a calm, short way. I told her I would not be able to come by the next day, but I hoped the fundraiser went well. She did not respond after that. I sat at my desk again and looked at the folder. I looked at the calendar date. I looked at the quiet room around me. I could feel the switch in me. Not rage, not panic. Just a shift from hoping to knowing. From that point on, I stopped thinking about what I wished Lena would do. I started thinking about what I needed to do to protect myself the right way, without drama, and without breaking any rules. I picked up my phone, searched for a contact Mari had once shared with me, and saved the number under a simple name. Then I placed the phone face down on the desk and turned off the lamp. The next week moved in a strange way. My days looked normal from the outside. I went to work. I answered calls. I solved problems. I ate simple meals. I slept. But inside, I was running a different kind of schedule. I did not tell many people what was happening. I did not want advice from everyone. Too many voices can turn a clear problem into confusion. I only spoke to 2 people I trusted. The first was Mari Nguyen. Mari is an accountant. We have known each other for years. She is practical and steady. She does not react fast. She listens, then asks the right questions. I met her at her office after work. Her office was small and quiet, with a clean desk and neat shelves. She offered me tea. I said yes, even though I did not care about tea that day. I wanted my hands to do something. Mari asked what was going on. I told her the simple facts. I said Lena was planning an Italy trip. I said Darian was leading it. I said I was told I would not be included. I said I had supported their house. I did not complain. I did not add extra emotion. I only described what happened and what I had paid. Mari did not look shocked. She looked focused. She asked if I had a list of payments. I told her I did. She asked if they were one-time payments or repeating transfers. I told her it was both. She asked if I had notes for why each one happened. I told her I kept notes. She nodded and said we should build a timeline. She said feelings are real, but numbers do not argue. She said if I wanted to act properly, I needed clean totals and clean dates. I pulled out my notebook and my phone. I did not hand her a big folder. I did not spread papers around her office. I just read off the dates and amounts I had tracked. She typed. When I paused, she asked her small questions. She asked if a payment was for repairs or for monthly support. She asked who requested it. She asked if the house expenses increased after Darian arrived. That last question hit me. I thought for a moment. Then I realized the answer was yes. The requests became more frequent after Darian started spending time at the house. More changes, more upgrades, more urgency. Mari did not judge. She only kept typing. When we finished, she turned the screen slightly so I could see the total line. 95,000. The number looked heavy even in a plain font. Mari said the total made the situation serious. She said it was not small help anymore. She said it was a major support line. I asked her what I should do next. Mari said the next step was to understand my cash flow and my automatic payments. She said I should confirm what I could stop and how fast it could stop. She said I should do it cleanly, without guessing. I left her office feeling a little lighter, not because I was happy, but because I had structure. I drove to my bank the next afternoon during my lunch break. The bank lobby smelled like polished floors and air conditioning. A few people sat in chairs with forms on their laps. I took a number and waited. When my number was called, I sat across from a banker in a small office with glass walls. I spoke in a calm tone. I said I wanted to review my recurring transfers and make changes. I kept my words simple. I did not mention family problems. I did not need the banker to understand my pain. I only needed clear steps. The banker asked for verification and then pulled up my account. I pointed out the recurring payments connected to Lena's house support. I asked how to stop them and when the last one would process. I asked if there were any penalties for canceling. I asked for confirmation of the change. The banker explained the timing. He explained how to cancel the automatic pattern and how to set it so it would not restart. He explained what would happen if a payment was already pending. I listened and asked him to repeat one part so I could write it down. When I walked out of the bank, my phone buzzed. It was Lena. She wrote that the stair railing was still loose. She wrote that guests were coming again and she felt stressed. She wrote that Darian wanted everything to look good before the trip. The message was polite, but it carried the same shape as all the others. A need, a push, a reminder of urgency. No mention of the fundraiser moment. No mention of how I felt. I stared at the message for a few seconds. Then I set the phone back in my pocket and walked to my truck. I did not reply right away. At the worksite, I kept my focus. I checked the concrete schedule. I solved a delivery mix-up. I spoke to a client about a delay and offered a clear solution. That part of my life was still stable. It reminded me that I was not powerless. I was only being treated as powerless in one area, and I had allowed it for too long. That evening, I finally replied to Lena. I kept it short. I said I was busy and could not come by this week. I said I hoped she found someone to tighten the railing safely. I did not mention the vacation. I did not mention money. She did not respond. 2 days later, Owen called me. Owen is Lena's former husband. We still speak sometimes. He is not dramatic. He does not like conflict. That is part of why things with Lena did not last. He would rather avoid than confront. Owen said he heard about the Italy plan. He said Lena seemed excited. He asked if I was going. I told him I was not. I said the trip was planned as a smaller group. Owen went quiet. Then he said he was sorry. He said Lena could be stubborn when she felt supported by someone louder. He did not say Darian's name, but he did not need to. The meaning was clear. I asked Owen a practical question. I asked how the house was set up when they bought it, and what kind of agreements they used. Owen said he did not remember every detail, but he said there were clear steps and clear responsibilities. He sounded uncomfortable, like he did not want to be in the middle. I told him I understood. I thanked him for the call. After that, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the date for the send-off dinner again. It was getting closer. The closer it got, the more messages Lena sent. Each message was about small tasks, small needs, small payments. She asked if I could help cover a new lock. She asked if I could pay for a yard service before they left. She asked if I could do one more transfer so she could feel calm on the trip. The strange thing was her tone. It was not cruel, it was casual. Like my support was a normal part of her life. The way electricity is normal. You only notice it when it stops. I did not answer right away. I started saving the messages, not in a dramatic way. I simply made sure I did not lose them. On Friday, I met Tessa Bloom, the realtor Mari recommended. I told Mari I wanted information, not drama. Mari gave me a name and said Tessa would be direct. Tessa's office had bright windows and a wall of neighborhood photos. Tessa shook my hand, sat down with a notebook, and asked what I needed. I said I wanted to understand the value of the house and what it takes to put it on the market. I kept my tone neutral, like I was discussing a normal business decision. Tessa asked if I lived there. I said I did not. She asked what my connection was. I said I had invested a large amount and I wanted to explore options. She did not ask for personal details. She asked for basics: the address, the condition, recent updates, any known issues. I told her what I knew. I told her about the repairs and improvements I paid for. Tessa listened and said the market was active in that area. She said pricing would depend on a few factors. She said she could do a full walkthrough if we reached that stage. She said there were standard steps to list a home properly. I nodded. I asked what those steps were. She explained them in a clear order. I wrote them down. Before I left, Tessa asked if there was anything sensitive about the situation. Her tone was careful. I appreciated that. I told her I wanted everything handled properly and calmly. I told her I did not want surprise moves that could create chaos. She said she understood. Driving home, I felt the same calm clarity again. It was not joy. It was not revenge. It was simply the feeling of taking control of my own boundaries. That weekend, I did not go to Lena's house. I did not fix anything. I did not deliver anything. I stayed home and did small tasks for myself. I cleaned the garage. I changed the air filter. I organized a few old boxes I had ignored. In one of those boxes, I found an old photo of Lena when she was 10. She was standing next to a small birthday cake, smiling with frosting on her cheek. I stared at it for a long time. I did not hate my daughter. I still do not. That is what made this harder. I was not dealing with a stranger. I was dealing with a person I raised, a person I protected, a person I taught to stand on her own feet. And now she was standing on my support while pretending I was not part of her circle. Sunday evening, Nina came by. She brought soup and bread. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and looked at my face like she could read my thoughts. Nina asked if Lena had called. I said no. Nina asked if I was okay. I said I was steady. Nina told me something that made my stomach tighten. She said Lena had been telling relatives that I was busy with work and that I was not into travel anymore. Nina said Lena made it sound like I chose to stay behind. I stared at the table for a few seconds. That detail mattered. It meant Lena was not only accepting being pushed out, she was helping cover it with a story that made me look like the one who stepped back. Nina asked what I planned to do. I told her I would handle things properly. I told her I would not shout. I told her I would not beg. I told her I would work through the systems they respect. Nina nodded once and said she was glad. She said if I kept letting this continue, it would not stop. She said it would only grow. After Nina left, I returned to my home office. I opened my notebook and wrote a simple list of steps I had taken so far. A timeline, a set of calls, a set of meetings, a set of dates. Then I opened my calendar and looked at the send-off dinner again. I imagined Darian standing in a room full of people, speaking for the family. I imagined Lena smiling beside him. I imagined myself sitting there, quietly treated like a background figure, expected to pay and stay silent. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. I did not need to imagine it anymore. I was going to make sure it could not happen again. The Monday after Nina visited, I took the day like I take most hard days. I woke up early, I made coffee, I read the same short message from Lena again. Then I put the phone down and ate a plain breakfast. At work, I kept my voice steady. I walked the site and checked the schedule. A delivery showed up late, and 2 workers argued about what to do next. I listened, asked 2 simple questions, and gave 1 clear direction. The argument stopped. The work moved forward. That is what calm does. It does not make problems disappear. It just keeps them from spreading. On my lunch break, I sat in my truck and called Raymond Klein. Mary gave me his name. She said he was careful and practical. She said he did not push people into messy choices. Raymond answered in a calm tone. I told him I wanted a short meeting to talk about a family property situation. I did not give him a speech. I only said it involved money I put into a house and a change in family boundaries. He told me what time he could see me. His office was in an older building downtown. The lobby had quiet lighting and framed prints on the walls. The receptionist was polite and spoke softly. When Raymond stepped out to greet me, he looked like someone who has seen every kind of conflict. He did not look amused. He did not look shocked. He just looked ready to work. We sat in a small conference room with a clean table. Raymond asked me to explain from the start. I did not talk about my feelings first. I laid out facts in order. I said Lena asked for help with a house. I said I agreed and paid over time. I said the total reached $95,000. I said Lena now told me I would not be included in the Italy vacation because Darian wanted family only. I said this was said in public at a community event. I said the tone in the messages and requests showed I was still expected to support their house, even as I was being pushed out of family life. Raymond listened without interrupting. He asked careful questions. He asked if I had records of payments. I said I did. He asked if there were recurring transfers. I said yes. He asked if I had messages that showed the pattern of requests. I said yes. Then he asked a question that was hard in a different way. He asked what I wanted as an outcome. I paused. That question matters because it forces you to be honest. It is easy to say you want respect. It is harder to decide what actions match your values. I told him I wanted fairness and clear boundaries. I told him I wanted to stop being treated like a support tool. I told him I did not want a public fight. I told him I only wanted to use proper systems and clean steps. Raymond nodded. He said calm action often works better than loud conflict. He said the goal is not to win emotionally. The goal is to protect yourself and to stop future harm. He explained that if I wanted to change my financial support, I should do it cleanly and consistently. He said if the house situation required formal steps, those steps should be handled properly, with clear notices and correct timing. He said if anyone tried to pressure me with guilt, I should not argue. He said the best response is often short and steady. I listened. I asked what I should avoid. He said I should avoid threats, emotional bargaining, and unclear promises. He said I should not send long texts that can be twisted later. He said it is better to be brief, factual, and consistent. Before I left, Raymond told me to take 1 day to think, then commit to a plan and follow it without drama. He said if I decided to act, I should act fully, not halfway. He said halfway steps invite more pressure. I drove home with the same quiet feeling in my chest, but it was different now. It felt less like shame and more like resolve. That evening, Lena texted again. She asked if I could send money for a last-minute expense before the trip. She wrote that it would help them relax. She added that they were so close to having everything ready. I read it once. Then I set my phone down and stared at the kitchen wall for a moment. I thought about how she did not ask how I was doing. She did not ask if I wanted to talk about the Italy message. She did not ask if I felt hurt at the fundraiser. She went straight to the request. I typed a reply. I deleted it. I typed another reply. I deleted it too. I did not want to write something that sounded like a fight. I also did not want to write something that sounded like permission. So I wrote one short line. I told her I would not be sending more money and that I hoped the trip went smoothly. I stared at the screen before I sent it. Then I sent it. A few minutes later, she replied with a short message asking what I meant. She added that they were counting on me. She said I was making it stressful. I did not answer right away. I washed the dishes. I took out the trash. I folded laundry. These were normal tasks, but they kept my hands busy while my mind stayed clear. When I sat back down, I read her message again. The phrase, counting on me, hit a part of me that had been quiet for too long. It sounded like love at first, but it was not love. It was expectation. It was a claim. I did not argue with the claim. I simply stopped feeding it. The next day, I met Mary again. She asked how I felt. I told her I felt clear. Mary asked if Lena responded badly. I told her Lena was pushing back. Mary nodded like she expected it. Mary said something I needed to hear. She said when you remove support from a system that relies on it, the system shakes. She said the shaking is not proof you are wrong. It is proof you are holding more weight than you realized. We went over my monthly budget and what I would look like without those transfers. The answer was simple. I would be fine. I would be more than fine. I would have room again, room for savings, room for repairs on my own home, room for peace. That night, Nina called. She said Lena had been upset on the phone with relatives. Nina said Lena was telling people I was being difficult right before the trip. Nina said Darian was speaking in the background, louder than needed, like he wanted an audience. I thanked Nina for telling me. I did not ask her to argue for me. I did not want her in the middle. I only asked her one thing. I asked if Lena mentioned the house. Nina said yes. Nina said Lena acted like the house help was a promise forever. After that call, I sat at my desk in the home office and looked at my calendar. The send-off dinner was in a few days. Lena had sent the invite in a family group chat. Darian was listed as host. I noticed something else in that invite. The tone. It was written like a celebration of their new chapter. It was written like the room would be full of people clapping for them. It was written like I would be there as a supporter, even if I was not included where it mattered. That was when I understood what the dinner was for. It was not only a meal, it was a stage. Darian wanted a public moment where he could lead, where Lena could smile, and where everyone would accept the story he was selling. He wanted the group to see me in the background, smiling and nodding, so the family-only rule would feel normal to everyone. I did not want a scene, but I also did not want to keep playing a part in a story that erased me. So I decided I would show up, I would be calm, I would be short, I would be proper. I would not fight with words. I would let action speak. 2 days before the dinner, I met Raymond again. I did not ask him for a speech. I asked him for clean steps. He told me what a clean step looks like. He told me what timing matters. He told me what language to avoid. He told me how to stay within proper process. I left his office with a clear head. At home, I put my phone on the table and turned off notifications for the family group chat. I did not block anyone. I did not make a big show. I just chose not to let my day be controlled by constant messages. I made a simple dinner and ate it slowly. Then I opened my home office drawer and pulled out 2 items, a plain envelope and a folder. I kept them closed. I did not spread anything across the desk. I did not reread everything. I already knew what I needed. I set the envelope and the folder into my bag. Then I put my bag by the door. That night, Lena called. It surprised me because she had not called in a while. I answered. Her voice sounded tight. She said she did not understand why I was acting this way. She said it was just a trip. She said I should not make things harder right before they left. She said I was putting her in a bad spot. I listened without cutting her off. When she paused, I spoke in a calm tone. I told her I was not yelling. I told her I was not punishing anyone. I told her I was simply responding to what she told me. I told her she made it clear where I stood. I told her I was adjusting my support to match that reality. She said Darian did not mean it personally. She said it was about boundaries. She said I should respect their relationship. I told her I did respect boundaries. I told her I was setting my own. There was a long silence. Then she said I was being unfair. She said a father should support his daughter. I told her a daughter should not erase her father and still demand support like it is automatic. My voice stayed even. I did not raise it. I did not insult her. I did not attack Darian directly. I only said the truth as I saw it. Lena ended the call quickly after that. She did not say goodbye. I sat in the quiet living room for a moment. I felt sad, not because I regretted the boundary, but because of what it said about where we were. Still, sadness did not change the facts. The day of the dinner, I finished work early. I went home, showered, and put on a clean button-up shirt. I did not dress to impress. I dressed to be proper. I checked the mirror and saw an older man with tired eyes and a steady face. Before I left, I looked around my house. The rooms were plain and quiet. The kitchen table was clean. My life was simple. That simplicity was not weakness. It was stability I built with time and discipline. I picked up my bag and walked to my truck. The air was cold. The sky was clear. As I drove toward the restaurant, I kept both hands on the wheel and my mind steady. I was not going to beg for a seat at their table. I was going to end the transaction they had turned my love into, using the proper steps that do not depend on anyone's mood. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat for a moment in silence. Then I took a slow breath, picked up my bag, and walked inside. I walked into the Italian restaurant and told the host my name. He checked a list and pointed me toward a private room in the back. The hallway smelled like warm bread and garlic. The closer I got, the louder the voices became. I heard laughter, glasses clinking, and the slow rise and fall of people talking over each other. The private room door was half open. Inside, a long table was set with folded napkins and small candles. There were about 15 people. Some were relatives, some were friends I did not know well. Everyone looked dressed for photos. I noticed phones on the table, face up, like they were waiting for a moment. Lena saw me first. Her smile flickered like it did not know what to do. She stood up, walked around the table, and gave me a quick hug. Her arms were tight, then she stepped back fast. She asked if I was doing okay, but her eyes were already sliding toward Darian. Darian stood at the head of the table. He looked comfortable there, like the room belonged to him. He greeted me in a polite tone and said he was glad I could make it. He said it like I was a guest in his space, not a father in his daughter's life. Then he turned back to the group and started talking again. I sat near the middle of the table. People nodded at me. A few said hello. Nobody asked about the Italy situation directly. It felt like everyone already understood the story they were supposed to believe. I could feel it in the careful smiles and the way eyes moved away quickly. A waiter came in and poured water. Plates of bread arrived. Darian talked about travel plans and how excited they were. He spoke about the itinerary, the photos they would take, the restaurants they would visit. He said they wanted a simple trip with the right people. He kept using words like fresh start and new chapter. Lena smiled beside him. She laughed at the right times. Her hand rested near his, like a signal. Then Darian stood up and tapped his glass lightly. The room quieted. I watched him scan the table like he was checking for attention. He said he wanted to thank everyone for coming. He said this dinner was special because it was about family. He said it was about the people who support them and believe in them. He looked toward me for a moment, then looked away, like he was making a point without saying it out loud. He asked everyone to celebrate their trip and their future together. Several people raised their glasses. Someone started clapping. The mood was bright, almost staged. I stayed seated and lifted my water glass slightly, just to be polite. My heart was steady, my hands were steady. The quiet part of me that plans and measures was fully awake. When the clapping stopped, Darian sat down again and started eating like nothing had happened. The room returned to normal chatter. A few people were already recording short videos of the table and the candles. I could see the screens out of the corner of my eye. I waited until the food arrived and the first few minutes of eating passed. I did not want to interrupt someone holding a plate. I did not want the staff caught in a mess. When the waiter left and the room settled again, I stood up slowly. The chairs scraped softly. A few heads turned. Lena froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Darian's eyes narrowed, not angry yet, but alert. I said I did not want to take much time. I said I came because I wanted to be respectful and clear. I said I had listened to the words used tonight, and I wanted to respond to them in a calm way. I told the room that a few days earlier I received a message from Lena telling me I was not included in the Italy trip because Darian wanted it to be family only. I said I accepted that decision as their choice. I said adults can make their own plans. I said I was not here to argue about travel. Then I said something simple that changed the air. I said when someone tells you that you are not family, you should believe them. I said that decision also tells you where you stand in other areas. The room went quiet in a different way. The earlier quiet was polite. This quiet was tense. Darian leaned back and asked what I was doing. He said tonight was not the time. He said I should not create trouble. I told him I was not creating trouble. I said I was ending confusion. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder. I did not slam it down. I set it on the table gently, like it was a work file. I opened it and pulled out 3 pages. They were clean printouts, clipped together. I said I had been supporting Lena's house for a long time. I said I paid for repairs, upgrades, and recurring costs. I said the total support reached $95,000. I said I never used that support to control her choices. I said I gave it as a father who wanted stability for his child. Then I said support without respect is not support anymore. It becomes a one-way transaction. Lena's face tightened. She said I was being unfair. She said this dinner was not about money. She said I was mixing things. I told her I understood why she wanted to separate them. I said the problem is that I could not separate them anymore, because I was treated like a funding source while being removed from the family circle. I held up the first page and said it was a summary of my transfers and payments connected to the house with dates and amounts. I said I had kept records because that is how I manage my life. I said the pattern became clearer over time. I did not read every line, but I pointed to the total at the bottom. A few people leaned forward. One aunt covered her mouth with her hand. Someone else looked down at their plate like they wished they were not there. Darian said I was trying to embarrass them. He said I was acting small. He said I was ruining a special moment. I told him I was not here to embarrass anyone. I said I was here to protect myself and stop being used. I said the special moment became different the second family only was used to remove me. Then I showed the second page. I said it was confirmation that the recurring transfers and automatic payments from my account were canceled. I said it was already done. I said there would be no more monthly support moving forward. Lena's eyes went wide. She said they had bills. She said they planned around that. She said I could not do this right before the trip. I told her I could, and I did. I said planning around my money while pushing me out was not a plan I agreed to. I said a plan built on entitlement does not last. Darian shifted in his chair and spoke louder. He said Lena was stressed enough. He said I should handle it privately. He said he did not care about my paperwork. I looked at him and said he was right about one thing. I said he did not care about me. I said that was exactly why my support was ending. I took out the third page. I said it was the next step, and it was already in motion, too. I said the house was being prepared for sale through proper channels. I said I had taken legal advice and followed it carefully. I said notices were being handled correctly, and that timelines were not based on feelings. People started murmuring. Someone asked what that meant. Someone else asked if Lena was losing the house. Lena stood up fast and said I was going too far. She said I was punishing her. She said I was acting like she did not matter to me. I told her she mattered to me. I said that was the reason I stayed quiet for so long. I said I kept hoping she would see what was happening. I said I kept hoping she would correct it when Darian spoke for her. I said I waited for her to treat me like her father again. I said the message about Italy made it clear she was choosing a different story. Darian said the house was not mine. He said I could not just decide things. He said I was bluffing. I told him I did not bluff. I told him I do not threaten. I said I act, and I act properly. I slid the papers across the table, not toward Darian, but toward Lena. I told her she could read them later with a clear head. I told her the numbers were real and the steps were real. I told her if she wanted to keep the house, she would need to handle it like an adult, with refinancing and clear agreements, not with pressure and silence. Lena's hands shook as she held the edge of the table. She said she did not understand why I was doing it this way. She said I should have talked to her more. I told her I tried. I reminded her of the call that went to voicemail. I reminded her of the fundraiser moment when she stayed quiet while Darian told strangers I was not family for the trip. I told her she had many chances to treat me with basic respect before things reached this point. One of the relatives asked Darian why he used family only in the first place. Darian tried to laugh it off and said it was not meant like that. He said people were misunderstanding him. I said the words were not misunderstood. I said the results proved exactly what they meant. The room felt cold now, even with candles on the table. The waiter passed the door and paused when he sensed the change, then kept walking. I reached into my pocket and placed a small set of keys on the table. They were the keys Lena gave me for the house when she wanted me to check on things and fix problems while she was away. I set them down gently, right in front of her. I told her I would not be coming by to repair things anymore. I told her I would not be the backup worker or the emergency fund. I told her she had a partner who liked to lead, and now he could lead through the real parts too. Darian's face tightened. He said I was trying to make him look bad. He said I was attacking his role. I told him I was not attacking anything. I said I was simply stepping out of a role I did not agree to. I said leadership without responsibility is just talk. Lena started crying quietly, not loudly, but enough that the room shifted again. A few people looked at me like they wanted me to soften. I did not. Not because I lacked care, but because softness had been mistaken for permission for too long. I said one last thing. I said I loved my daughter, but I would not pay to be treated like a visitor. I said my support was ending because my dignity mattered too. Then I closed the folder, placed it back in my bag, and stood up. My chair made a soft sound against the floor. Nobody moved to stop me. Darian looked like he wanted to speak again, but no words came out that would help him. As I walked to the door, I heard phones stop recording. The room stayed quiet behind me. The last thing I saw was Lena staring at the keys on the table like they were heavier than metal. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and kept walking without looking back.